Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aquarian Mind podcast. Today's podcast, episode number 144. I'm your host, Jamel Crothers. It's Book Inside Friday. We're continuing with A Woman's Worth series. Today, we're up to part 3, and I want to talk about this book and what went into it. And it was one of the more important books that needed to be written. And I only say this because it's a story about a young teenager named Kayla who's, going through a lot in her life. And being a teen has its ups and downs with puberty and learning who you are and school, goals, boys, sports, fashion, and everything else in between. And the biggest part of a young kid's journey and growing up in today's world is having the right role models. And parents are considered role models, but there are so many more influences around young kids, from fashion models to musicians, entertainers, and so many other outlets. And this young teenager, Kayla, is struggling with this and trying to find women who will inspire her. And while it's challenging to find women around her, especially on social media, I decided to go in the direction of writing a story from a different place, where her friends and classmates get to meet women who are in powerful positions in the world, and they form a group through her guidance counselor. And her guidance counselor is the one who knows people in high places who impact the world the way she does. So for me, there was a sense of fulfillment in writing this story because it felt great to talk about role models. A lot of teens, they struggle with finding the right people to look up to. And in today's media and entertainment, a lot of people in the spotlight aren't the greatest role models. Reality TV stars, some musicians, some actresses. Not throwing names or throwing anyone under the bus, but let's just say there are certain people that are put in front of young teenagers all the time, and it's not the doctors, the lawyers, the businesswomen, the dentists, things of that nature, right? So, the story will be a book that a lot of young adolescents can read and feel inspired by. And reading this story will hopefully inspire others to create women's groups in schools to help, young women develop, talk about their struggles and issues, and meet people who were once in their shoes trying to maneuver through life, right? Because, we put our kids in school. Well, I don't have kids, but you get where I'm going with this. And they go to school to learn all of these things about world history and science and math and all this stuff, and none of that applies to life. Right? So, why can't school districts incorporate in their budget teenage groups with teachers and bring in speakers who are in different fields and give these kids an opportunity to ask them how they got to where they are? Because in all honesty, everyone has a story. And there may be that kid who, meets the person who's like a mental health counselor, and helps people get through their struggles mentally, and they're inspired by that. And then that builds a connection, right? Now this kid's wanting to go to college to major in something that they want to do and are passionate for, and there goes your opportunities. That opens the doors for so many things, right? Maybe there is that child who, meets that, pediatrician or whatever the case is, and then that young girl becomes inspired by that and goes, wow, that seems like a really great career. Why aren't schools doing that more, right? So that's really the basis of A Woman's Worth 3. It's a small group of young teenage girls who get to have discussions after school about things that they're dealing with, things that they're going through with that guidance counselor that's in this story, and that stays within the confines of that room, and it becomes a little easier for things to kind of open up for young girls, because honestly, a lot of teenage kids go through that phase where they don't talk to their parents about as many things as they would, right? Because kids want to learn themselves, and sometimes they need to hear a different voice other than their parent, right? I mean, that's just the nature of it. So I feel like, writing this book will hopefully inspire that to kind of open up those conversations to where we can, open up the doors to having, small teenage groups of kids that, and if these kids want to join that group and be there after school or whatever, or before school, whatever the case is, that's just a grand opportunity for these kids to look up to certain adults and go, okay, like they've gone through the same things that I'm going through currently, right? I mean, if you're going to school to learn, you should go to school to learn about life and what's to come and the struggles and the things you're going to deal with and the ups and downs and the roller coaster ride of life, right? Not to go to school and learn about the French Revolution. The French Revolution is not going to help you get through, a moment where you're having anxiety and you're trying to figure out how you're gonna get through. Now, if you meet a motivational speaker who's going around the country and meeting people and things like that, and they come into your classroom and they say, look, I have mental health issues and I have anxiety and I go through struggles and I've had it since I was a teenager. You know what? That makes that teenager feel a lot better about themselves, and they go, okay, well, she's in however old she is, she's in her 30s and she's got anxiety and she deals with it a certain way, and this is how she manages it, and okay, that's something new, right? But as John D. Rockefeller says, I want workers, not thinkers. That isn't, he went way more in depth into it, and if you don't know who he is, yeah, do your research. Please do. Anyway, I just want to say, like, writing these book series are very important for me, and I want to make sure that I am writing content that is not just for the moment. It's going to last a lifetime. There are very few books that I've written that are just for a certain moment in time. The only book I can think of off the top of my head right now, out of the 30 plus books I've published so far to date, is America, a Country Divided. And that was written in like 2016, published 2017, and that was 2017, and that was in that moment of time. And that's about, I think, the only book. Every other book I've written is in the moment now, and it will most likely be down the road where we're still having these conversations. But that's the goal, right? To stand the test of time. And this book, I hope really like opens the doors, like I said, for these conversations to happen, to where we need to incorporate certain things in schools. Now, school safety right now is probably the bigger priority based off of what, has been going on lately in the world, unfortunately. And I apologize if I've triggered anyone and if I've brought anything up that makes you uncomfortable. But it has to be said. School safety's got to kind of become a priority at the moment. And then after that, kind of something like this that I've written about, where, we have to give teenagers an outlet to, have these conversations about what they're dealing with, right? Puberty, growth, and the emotional roller coasters. And I'm not talking about just women, I'm talking about young men too. Because as a teenager, I went through things myself. And when I sit in my late 30s and I reflect back on what my teenage years were like, yeah, a lot of what I dealt with and went through in my mind is still kind of floating around now, right? But that's life, right? It's part of growth. So, Woman's Worth Part 3, available pretty much in every bookstore except Amazon. Paperbacks are on the book patch, and the link will be in the description. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this Book Insight Friday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Go enjoy yourselves. Be good, everyone, and go accomplish your goals.